I didn't have a great start with the book. A bit left. I just want to stay and read it, but I can't. But it's so good. The writing style's not really working for me, and I adore her. She needs to be protected at all costs. It's like, what are you doing, people? Honestly, like, there's a lot of feelings for trying a new book genre. Welcome to Can I Read Romance? Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and everyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you have got a bit lost. Welcome everyone, I'm Chatty, this is my channel Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about whether or not I can read romance. In episode 2, I'm going to be introducing you to the first 3 books I'll be reading for this series, my thoughts on the first chapters for each book, and then my reading journey as I progress through the books. And I'll be giving you my final thoughts on them in episode 3. So, in this video, I have chosen all authors I have never read from. So the first video is very, very fresh. This is like the ultimate will it, won't it. I've chosen ones where I feel the premise will be ticking my boxes. So I'm going into this hopeful, but we will find out together what I actually think of them. So let me introduce you to the books that I will be reading in this vlog. First of all, I have a contemporary book, and this is a sapphic romance, and it is by Ashley Herring Blake, and it is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. I've heard really good things about Ashley Herring Blake. I know this is the 3rd book in a series, but they are companion novels, so I'm quite happy going into this not having read the other books, because this is the one with the premise that really speaks to me. I really like the concept of I like the fake dating aspect. So we have Iris Kelly, who is an author who writes romance, who doesn't do that herself and is kind of struggling with the plot for her next book. We then have her love interest, who she has a one-night stand with and then meets again when just randomly auditioning for a play, and so they're in like this forced proximity, and it sounds like it's going to be hilarious, like that whole concept of kind of seeing each other again. I like that. I feel the fake dating is going to add to hilarity, and I quite enjoy the concept of someone who is very much like, I'm not doing romance, I'm very much happy where I am, and then seeing them fall in love. I'm excited for all of that. I think it will work really well. Also, I love a play. I love a play, so I'm excited for all of those fun times. And this is The Davenports by Crystal Marcus. So this is set in 1910 Chicago by and focusing on a wealthy Black family. So I'm really excited to read a Black historical book showing wealth and prosperity within the Black community. I've not read any books set around 1910 in America. I've heard of a lot of books about kind of like the what's it called? I've read a lot of books like set in the 1930s and things in America, but not 1910. So I'm excited to see all of that aspect, and I'm excited to see kind of more of this like societal romance and kind of like how that goes. If there's going to be any comedy of manners in there, there's going to be a few different characters. So I'm getting a sort of like a slight saga feel, which may or may not work in its favour. But I'm really excited about the historical period, and I'm hoping that I enjoy the characters and the romance in this one. And finally, I have A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland for my fantasy romance. This is one that actually caught my eye. So this is a male-male romance, and the premise sounds really interesting. It's a political fantasy, so it sounds like there's a lot of stakes, and I think the romance aspect around it is going to be really fun in that kind of backdrop. I feel there's going to be a lot of kind of like political tension, and that's really the stuff that I absolutely love. So hopefully, even if the romance doesn't work for me, I will definitely be enjoying like the fantasy setting. I'm hopeful it will work. I haven't really heard a lot of people like talking about this. I heard a lot of people being interested in this, but I haven't heard a lot of people like talking about this one. So we will see. these are all the books that I'm going to be exploring and reading. Are there any you think are going to work for me? Are you any that you think I'm going to absolutely hate? I'd love to know. Have a little chat in the comments. So today I had a couple of reserve books come in from the library. I have read a little bit of both of them just to kind of get the flavour and see which one I'm sort of in the mood for to start off with. Okay, it doesn't date. I was very pleased that they started mentioning red hair, because on the front cover we have one sort of brunette, I suppose like slightly more mask clothes, and the other one in some more feminine clothes, and she's got bright red hair, and I was like, I have no idea which one of these is Iris Kelly. I would like to have a picture of her in my head, please. It is a redhead that is Iris Kelly. So there we go. I suppose like the Kelly surname hinting Irish connection, which they talk about in the family, should have given it away, but not all Irish people have red hair, okay? Let's not stereotype. But yes, she is Iris Kelly, so I'm happy to know who she is so I can picture her properly in my head, otherwise it's going to confuse me and I have to reimagine the whole thing because I'm a visual reader. I started it, and so we're straight in with Iris being an author, wanting, she's got a publisher for her second book, but she has absolutely no ideas. She's about to come to, I think it's her mum's birthday, sort of family party. So we're introduced to her parents, to her brothers and sisters, and we start getting the vibe of Iris in the family. I didn't have a great start with the book. I was immediately turned off by her parents because they open the door and then start snogging each other. I'm like, okay, yes, I see you're trying to make a point. Your parents are in love with each other and yay for them, physically affectionate. But yeah, there's a time and a place. Like, fine, snog in the kitchen and accidentally walk in on your parents, sure. But, like, you've literally just greeted your daughter. Like, hi, darling, nice to see you come in. Like, not, hi, darling, start snogging. Like, it's just like, I'm like, what are you doing, people? Honestly, like, no kid wants to see their parents snogging, I'm sorry. Chaste kisses on the cheek, and holding hands, hugs, like, it's nice to know you're in love. But, you know, like, tonsil tennis, no thank you, please. Once I'd got over that, we then have the family, and immediately I'm again annoyed by the mum who's setting Iris up on various different dates. I'm like, why? Why are we deciding that happiness only lies in being paired off? Can't you just be delighted that your daughter has had a book published? Well done her. Like, why does she need to be paired off with someone like that? It really annoyed me. Really rubbed me up the wrong way. So I'm angry. It's like, this is not a great place to start in this book. I'm hoping for silly fun times here, not me being annoyed. But then I can understand why Iris might be annoyed with her family. I did immediately start to feel for her with a sister-in-law and sister who are got it together people. Like, they look like they've ticked off their to-do list of life. Married, kids, successful job, organised, pristine, that kind of stuff. So I'm quite happy that Iris in her mess is just like, yeah, screw you guys. So I'm feeling kind of her dilemma. Okay, I'm not feeling angry at Iris at the moment. I'm just angry at her family. I also started the Davenports. So with the Davenports, I'm already enjoying it straight away. You're immediately given their like social standing by this scene in a shop of some kind. We've got brooches, we've got fabric, we've got hats, all in this one shop. I have no idea of the historical context of 1910 Chicago, so I'm going to be intrigued to kind of see how that plays out and what that looks like. But we've got quite a few characters in here, so I don't know how many of them the romance is going to be focused on, but we are we get the point of view of Olivia to start off with, who is, I think, the eldest daughter of the Davenports, which is well-to-do. They've got money, there's a certain amount of education and social standing within there, and they are a wealthy black family. So there is racism in here from the get-go. She is treated very snootily by a white shop girl who realises her mistake once Olivia is like, excuse me, I will show you exactly where I should be in this shop and you will call me miss. Thank you very much. And she starts making people aware of her status. So I'm looking forward to kind of meeting the rest of the Davenports and kind of seeing where it goes from there. I'm intrigued, I'm interested, I'm
hoping the fun takes over the angry, because I enjoyed the anger of the Davenports. Yeah, we'll see. I really don't mind the steam level in romance books. It doesn't need to be steamy, but I don't mind if there is steam. It works either way. I want a connection between the characters. I want that kind of chemistry between them. I want to root for them individually and root for them as a couple. So we'll see if I get any of that. I haven't yet got hold of my fantasy choice yet. But when I do, I will do again this little just sort of like how I feel about just the first bit of it. I am going to start reading a little bit more. At the moment, I think because I'm feeling quite angry about Iris Kelly, I feel like I just want to see her slightly vindicated. Whereas I feel Olivia has been slightly vindicated by making her point. So I'm kind of feeling more inclined to like start reading Iris Kelly Doesn't Date at the moment and kind of get more of a feel of that one.
I have a copy of A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. I was supposed to get this out the library, but that got scuppered because it was reserved, and I really wanted to read it now and do this video now so all the books could be together. So thankfully World of Books came through and I now have my own copy, and I have read the first chapter, which is quite far into the book. Like, the chapter was 33 pages, but it has set it up perfectly. I'm invested already. I'm really excited about reading this book. So like I said before, the politicking of the court was very intriguing to me. It's a fantasy, and I feel it's got a good fantastical world for the romance to be taking place as part in, and there are goals and aims within the story as well. So I think it's like, I feel it's more of a 50-50 than it's a romance set in a fantasy world. So I think that's really going to work for me. Already I've been introduced to the protagonist. So the first chapter is all about the protagonist. We haven't met the love interest yet. I think his chapter is going to be following on. But already I have adopted Kadu. I've adopted Kadu. I'm just, he just needs looking after. He's got a lot of worries. He's got a lot of tension. He loves his sister. He loves his niece. And I just want to give him a big hug, because already political stuff has happened. There's tensions, there's stakes, there's stuff going on. So we get a kind of idea of what's happening kind of within the world and its surrounding kingdoms. Gutted there is no map. How rude. We're getting lots of different places named, and I'm like, why is there no map? I want a map. Rude. I'm really enjoying like finding out sort of about their systems. There's certain like measures of like soldiers and like how they go through certain ranks and certain statuses, that you don't have to have, you can have an heir to the throne, and you don't have to claim who the father is as long as it's come from the royal person. So it's like the whole concept of like being a bastard is not part of this world. So that's all really fascinating. So very excited about this. Gonna read some more and I'll let you know what I think as I go on. But I'm feeling really excited that this is going to really work for me. Although at the moment it's very much more because it's a fantasy. But because I'm really invested in our protagonist, I'm really excited to meet the love interest and kind of see how, if I'm then going to be rooting for him as well and then rooting for them as a couple. But yeah, generally so excited about this.
Reading Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake.
So I'm now 6 chapters into Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. We have met Iris's love interest and I adore her. She needs to be protected at all costs. She's wonderful. She's suffering from very strong anxiety. She's had a bad breakup. She's got a lovely friend. She's got an awkward group of friends. There's been an awkward sort of moment. And yeah, I'm now incredibly invested because I love Stevie. I'm still highly annoyed by all of Iris's family, and I think Iris's handling of them is amazing. And I want good things for these two. I also believe one of the things that drew me to the book, which I'd forgotten about, was there is going to be a production of Much Ado About Nothing, which is one of Shakespeare's plays that there's a lot of problematic things with it and things that make me angry, but I do really love that play and I know it really, really well. So that's exciting. So there's going to be a queer retelling of the Much Ado About Nothing play, which Stevie is going to be playing Benedict. So I'm very excited to see how all of this turns out. So hopefully it's all going to keep working for me. Good morning. Just thought I'd update you because I want to carry on reading, and I thought if I don't update you, then I'm going to lose my thoughts as I'm going through. So I am just under halfway through Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. It's incredibly readable, just like the other contemporary romances that I of the limited number I have read. But we now have a little bit more about both backgrounds and characters of Stevie and Iris. Obviously, Stevie is my girl, I absolutely love her, but Iris I'm really enjoying getting to know more and seeing more of the vulnerable side and her past. I'm still incredibly annoyed with her family for this whole pressure of societal expectations that to be happy you need to be with a partner and want to have a family. So I feel she would be in a much better place if she did not have that pressure from her family. And in her friendship group, this is the third book in the it's a place, it's a small town where there's been other stories, and it's Iris Kelly's friendship group. She's the last of the three friends to be single. I do not mind reading this out of order at all. I may pick up the others, I may not. It was definitely the premise of this one that appealed to me and made me want to pick this one up. But obviously her friends are all paired off, and it would be much easier to feel less alone if she wasn't having that pressure from the family and that expectation that you can't possibly be happy unless you have a partner. This kind of concept that you should want children. My personal story, it's never been something that I've not considered for myself. I am very maternal. I have always enjoyed the company of children. My job is based in children. I love interacting with children. I'm volunteering with children. I think they're amazing. And the idea for me to not have that in my life would be upsetting if for some reason it wasn't possible for me and my partner, I'm speaking hypothetically here, to have children. That would not be a deal clincher because that's not something able to have. And it's that aspiration, that kind of like life goal that I feel will kind of pull you together as a couple. But a choice to not want that for yourself, that would be a deal breaker for me because I know it is something that has always been so important to me. I know not everyone feels the same way. Like I know some people like warm up to the idea or unsure of the idea and don't know. So for me, it was very easy because it's always been very clear cut for me, and I know that's not the same for everyone else. Something like when it wasn't like freaky to have that kind of discussion is something that I would discuss. I literally cannot remember how it personally happened in mine. I think it was something that both of us were quite open with wanting, so it definitely worked for us. But I can also see the flip side, so looking at Iris' past relationships, for them to have different life goals is a good reason to not be together anymore. But I can understand her feelings of that she's not enough because of that. Like she's not enough to kind of be with and want to be with. She's not enough to be loved in comparison to that. So I can understand how that would also be hurtful. Like even though that relationship, it's kind of spoken of kind of like amicably, but there's still that hurt there. So it's nice to kind of get to see Iris's vulnerability, and then another relationship she's had which is a lot more traumatic to her. We get to see that. So obviously Iris comes across this incredibly confident character, but it's really nice to see this vulnerable side that makes her kind of like more well-rounded as a whole human. I think if her family were focusing on feeling proud of the fact that she is doing something where she is achieving her goals, like she's doing something she's passionate about, like how many people get to do what they really love as a way of earning money and following their dreams. And also the fact that she's got a really strong friendship group is something to be celebrated. You know, it's wonderful that she's got this support base, that she's allowing those kind of relationships to thrive as well. And I just think in general, if her family could also focus on that rather than what they feel means success, what they feel means happiness, and seeing that lacking in Iris's life as a reason to judge her, it would just be better. But it's really nice to see both Iris and Stevie learning more about each other and seeing those vulnerabilities and being able to talk to each other through them and kind of support each other and have that kind of growth together is really nice. Stevie is talking about her anxiety a lot,
and kind of opening up about that and how it affects her life. And we've had the reason for fake dating. I really enjoyed that scene. It was lots of fun. It was like this kind of like anticipated, beautiful, messy, funny, comedic moment, and I thought it went really well. And I really enjoyed the conversations of Iris and Stevie together. I was slightly concerned that there was going to be a moment where there was going to be like a miscommunication, like have a tension and hold them apart, but that was discussed quite early on and sort of glossed over. I'm really enjoying kind of like the way they tease each other and the humour to kind of break up when Stevie in particular is feeling anxious about stuff. I thought that was done really, really well. So I'm very much enjoying the premise. I'm enjoying seeing how it's going. I am enjoying the friendships as well and the kind of dynamics within their own different circles. I do enjoy the dynamic of Stevie's friendship group. I think because of the past relationship kind of like cross-sectioning of it, it feels very awkward. I'm kind of enjoying that drama aspect as well. I want more Ren, Stevie's friend Ren. I think they're awesome and I'd like to see a little bit more of them, but I'm very much enjoying the main couple, rooting for them as a couple and investing in them individually. So I'm going to keep reading now and I'll check in later.
So I can't really update you about Iris Kelly Doesn't Date because I read the whole thing. So I intended to come back in and check in with you, but it was just so compulsively readable, I just kept reading. So you're just going to have to wait until the second video where I give you my wrap up of this book.
Reading The Davenports by Crystal Marquis.
Hello! So I'm now reading The Davenports, and I have read quite far into the book before talking to you, so I'm like a third of the way in. And that's because of the structure of this book. So it follows 4 different girls. And we have an Olivia chapter, who is the eldest Davenport sister. We have a Helen chapter, who is the youngest Davenport sister. We have an Amy Rose chapter, who is the lady's maid to Olivia and Helen. And we have Ruby, who is Olivia's friend, but has different sort of family background and circumstances to Olivia. So there's sort of like 4 stories kind of going on, and it's sort of quite separate. There doesn't feel like much of a crossing of the people. Like they mention each other, but it doesn't feel sort of cohesive. So I felt I had to read quite far into it to be able to give you kind of my thoughts on anything. And at the moment, I'm really not sure what I think. So I enjoyed the opening chapter. I felt that really kind of like set up what the book was going to be about. I enjoyed our introduction to Helen, but didn't really show as much other than like what she's interested in. The same with sort of like Amy Rose and Ruby. So we've got that Helen really enjoys mechanics and working in the garage, which isn't considered a ladylike thing to be doing. So that's frowned upon. So that's Helen's deal. We then have Amy Rose, who doesn't want to be a servant anymore. We get kind of her background of how she came to be with the house. We hear from her that she used to play sort of like almost like as an equal with the other children in the house, but now it's very much like she is treated as a maid. So I can't quite line up like her childhood and then her current like status. Like it doesn't feel there is a friendship between them. But she has grand plans. Like she wants to open a hair salon for black hair. So she has a business plan. She has these sort of like potions and hair care things for black hair. So she has her dream. We then have Ruby, whose family are basically selling everything so the father of the family, Mr. Tremaine, can run for mayor. So there's lots of ambition, sort of wanting to kind of further the black cause and help the black people. And so it's like a worthy thing that he's pushing for, and Ruby supports it, but she is finding it really tough that she has got to give up so much of her life and her things. Her role is to marry well to further her father's cause. So they are set on her marrying the Davenport son. There does seem to be sort of like a past connection between the two, but it's a bit wishy-washy. So that's kind of like how we're set up. We followed them a little bit more. And I'm not quite sure. I'm enjoying the themes and the concepts and the sort of the exploration of things, but I'm not quite connecting to the characters as strongly. And I don't know if it's because of the way it's done in sort of like pieces. The writing style's not really working for me, even though it's third person. It took me a while to actually go, oh, it is third person, because it feels so first person, which is a weird thing to say. And generally, I prefer third to first. But it's not working. It's very much kind of within the girl's head. It's very kind of like separated.
and it doesn't kind of flow organically as a story. It feels more like 4 separate stories. There's a variety of love interests, but not all of them are making sense to me at the moment. I think I need to read a bit more to get a better handle on it. So I'm going to check back in with you when I'm sort of over halfway and just see how I'm feeling about it then. So I'll see you then.
I've just finished reading The Davenports. I was going to come back. I intended to kind of come back and talk to you when I felt a little bit more sure of where I stood with it. But I couldn't. And I got to the end. And I'm feeling a bit conflicted. So there's lots of things that I appreciated, but generally didn't work for me, and I am sad about it. So the things that I appreciated, I was very interested in the historical period. 1910 Chicago, featuring wealthy black families. I thought, brilliant. That sounds awesome. Especially when you get to the acknowledgements. Crystal Marquez goes on to sort of like talk about how, apart from like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, there was no kind of other thing in the history books that you kind of taught at school about the civil rights movement. And it's such an important part of history, and it's such a fascinating part of history. And I really liked the concept of it crossing paths with the suffragette movement as well. I thought that was brilliant. And it did take me sort of like down some exploring-y, Googling notes myself. So this was inspired by C.J. Patterson and Sons Carriage Company. So we have the Davenports with their own carriage company, and it follows a similar trajectory of the history of their father, that he was originally a slave and got freedom and sort of like rose up through his own industriousness, integrity, business dealings to be able to have his own carriage company and sort of accumulate wealth and become a sort of wealthy member of society. So that is really fascinating and interesting. And we got kind of snippets of that vibe throughout the book, and it's kind of just scratched the surface, the kind of the themes and things that interest me. And I think it's because of what Crystal Marquez wanted to focus on and what I as a reader lean towards and enjoy. So not every book is going to work for every reader, and that is fine because we're all different. So this book was not aimed at me. This book was not for me, even though I wanted it to be. I wanted more of the history. I wanted more details. I wanted more exploration of the journey. I wanted more snippets of it. It very much kind of feels, because of how the book is done, that we are exploring 4 different stories within here. It's a light romance. It does have much more of a kind of contemporary vibe, which I'm fine with. But for me, if it's going to have more of that lighter tone and contemporary feeling, I want a lot more banter and witticism and focus on just one couple. If there's going to be lots of themes and sort of heavy topics throughout it, which I think there should be, considering the history of this, it would not be true to its time if we did not have racism, classism, colorism all kind of brought up within here, and feminism. It wouldn't have that same, it would kind of be wrong to kind of like brush over that and not think about it. But it kind of like did a balance of both and kind of never gave me one of what I wanted. It was like just little teases throughout, and it never fully got to that immersion point. I did then start looking up, well, I've never heard of 1910 Chicago. I'd like to explore it and feel a bit more of it. We didn't fully get the feeling from the story. Like, there was touches mentioned, but I could not immerse myself. I didn't feel the vibe of the streets or anything, because the story was very focused on the plot of 4 different people, on the love story of 4 different people, and the desires and dreams of 4 different people and their own turmoils. There wasn't enough space in the book to give us that kind of letting us walk down the streets of 1910 Chicago with just one viewpoint, with just one person
and just being able to breathe in the city and the feeling of the city and the bustle and all of that. You get snippets of it, particularly through like Olivia's story, but it's not enough. I wanted more. So I did start Googling 1910 Chicago and getting like lovely black and white photos and 1910 fashion, so I could kind of visualize a bit more of what things would look like. And I also was Googling 1910 fashion for black women, and these wonderful like photographs came up, and I discovered Maggie Lena Walker, who was a banker. She managed to be the financial leader of this bank, and she was also an activist. She was very powerful and influential in sort of like the right of women, the right of black people, and sort of like the economic growth of black people. So I have looked up a biography on her and have added that to my wish list.
A Right-Worthy Grand Mission, Maggie Lena Walker and the Quest for Black Economic Empowerment by Gertrude Woodruff Marlowe.
Also, Crystal Marquez noted CJ Walker, it's all about the Walkers clearly, as a inspiration for one of the characters in here. She was also an entrepreneur, and she developed hair care for black women. So that's another sort of like black influential figure I'd be interested in finding another biography on her life.
On Her Own Ground, The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker by Alayla Perry Bundles, one of her descendants.
So it has definitely led me down this rabbit hole of wanting to research more, wanting to find out more about historical figures in this time period. So that's brilliant. So well done, Crystal Marquez, for doing that. And I do feel that this style of writing, this sort of like lighter tone, this more of a sort of chatty contemporary feel of, and sort of like snippets of these different characters, so you're getting different stories, different girls. I feel that it would be very appealing, particularly for teenage girls. So this is a YA, that is who it is aimed at, but definitely like 13-year-olds could pick this up and go in so many ways with it. Like, I think there will definitely be at least one, if not more, of the protagonists appealing to them. They'll have their favourite ones, they'll enjoy their favourite ones. And this is, the way it's written is very user-friendly, because you've got different stories and short chapters. I think people that maybe don't class themselves as readers or don't feel they would read historical fiction, that maybe like that's too dense for them, this would definitely be their gateway in. I think it has got that universal appeal. So I really hope that this book gets into more people's hands. I think it's really inspiring, not only for exploring more of Black history and seeing representation and following your own path. I think some characters worked better with that concept than others, because there was kind of a lot going on, but within it, a lot of the, I suppose the morals were sort of quite similar, even though the characters were different. It was quite easy to kind of lose momentum. And for me, it felt more stop-starty. It just kind of didn't help me get into the story, because it was like you were flipping here, there and everywhere. I do feel that this would have worked better for me if we'd focused on one or two of the characters and then maybe had other books that explored the other characters. It didn't quite link all of those stories together fully enough for me to be immersed in it. So I think this kind of style would be suited by just giving us a lot more time with one of them, so we could breathe a bit more. So we could have Olivia exploring her high society ideals, being the good child, doing the expected thing with the charities and the parties, and continuing to elevate the Davenport name. But also she's been very, very sheltered and is aware through her dealings with the community centre and stumbling across a civil rights movement. She started to have her eyes opened and is sort of trying to work out how best to get involved and how best to support. And I think that could have been explored more fully if we'd had more time with her. So we could have spent more time with her sort of hanging out at these charity things and just allowing the fact that maybe she was a bit bored, maybe everything was a bit stilted, maybe it was hard being perfect all the time, to kind of grow organically, rather than us kind of like being dropped in it, like, oh, this is how she's feeling now. And even there was a very crucial part at the end where she made a choice between life paths. That
was just an aside. There was what could have been such an exciting scene, such a powerful scene, and we didn't see that. We saw the resolution of it, because the focus for the author was not on the character and the story of the character and their kind of like enlightening moment. It was much more on the romance and kind of giving beats to will they, won't they, who will they end up with, and that kind of thing. And as I'm doing a Can I Read Romance, that's fine, that's where we're going to focus. But for me to enjoy it more as a book, I would have preferred that. I also felt we didn't quite see these 4 characters who know each other, who've known each other since childhood. We didn't see a lot of them interacting. I didn't get the friendship. It's alluded to. It didn't feel like they knew each other. Like, it very much felt like they were all just going about their own days separately to each other. Like, and it's one of the things I love in stories is I love bonds of friendship and bonds of sisterhood, and it could have been amazing, and I didn't get that, so that was a shame. So I feel we could have had the 2 sisters in this one, focusing more on Olivia, and then maybe looking at Helen sort of in bits, with hearing about Ruby and Amy Rose kind of separately, and then in the following book having Ruby and Amy Rose's story time to shine. I think those ways would link better, because you've got similar male characters connecting those people. Ruby I found hardest to connect to, because I find she's very contradictory. Like, I felt like she was struggling with the same thing like 3 times, and it was just like, you know what you need to do? I'm getting annoyed with you. And I needed to feel more of the pressure she was under, whereas I didn't quite get it. It was like, we got a certain amount of, it's a bit annoying that she can't wear the same kind of clothes as everyone else, and she's had to sacrifice things and give it up. But there was a scene with a necklace, but I didn't understand why that particular item had such an emotional connection to her. Like, I needed to have kind of been there more. I needed to have been pulled in more, and I just wasn't. I felt I could have got there with kind of like her story, but again, you were just taking away sort of moments. Amy Rose's story, I'm going to need a lot more convincing with that plot, because it makes me feel uncomfortable because of the power dynamic in it. Like, more needs to be done to address that. And Helen's story, I do not understand the big deal. We've had similar, I'm trying not to give spoilers. We've had similar reasons for our love interests to distrust the protagonists. And then we have a protagonist distrusting the love interest for withholding some information and not being truthful about certain things. I don't know. So basically the first book, The Davenports, ends with half the story told. So it ends on a cliffhanger, essentially. I find that hard to judge the finishing of the romances because it's not continued. So I am toying with reading the second book, so I have a better idea of the romances and if I'm invested in them. Because in my library, just sitting on the shelf, was this book, which is more than this, the second book in the Davenport story. So I think it is just a duology. If it's not just a duology, we're just going to be leaving it here. Because it was very, very easy to read. It's not going to take me long to get through this. I do, even though it's not the best book for me, I still kind of want to know what happens to these characters. And I've only got half stories. So maybe these mix-ups are going to clear up. I don't know. Maybe I am going to feel in a different way, or maybe it's just not going to work for me. At the moment, Ruby's romance is the one where I understand the love interest the most. So I'm invested in the love interest, but I'm least invested in the protagonist within her one. So there's not one in particular that I'm like, yes, because I have problems with all of them. So Helen's romance just felt dodgy on all sorts of levels because it shouldn't have got that way. Like, conversations need to be had. It didn't give me the healthy romance and relationship communication I needed. Olivia's similar and a bit more. I don't understand the initial attraction from one to the other. Like, it did sort of happen, but I don't
I don't fully feel how we quite could have got there. But again, I think it's because I need more in depth, I need longer, I need more breathing time, I need more focus and details. Whereas this book is much of a faster pace, and you're kind of like, we just kind of need to get ourselves there. So I can see it, but I didn't feel it. Also struggled with a few of the situations with the historical realism of this. These girls live in a massive fancy house. The Davenports do anyway. They live in a massive fancy house with lots of servants. They're very sheltered and protected by their parents. How have they managed to continuously sneak out all the time to do their own thing and not get caught? Like, and how has their mother, who clocked once, and she did say, and she said, I don't want to know. Do you really not want to know? I thought you'd like to know. Considering the type of parent you are, why are you not demanding answers from your child as to what she's up to? I'm confused by this. It doesn't feel realistic. Like, I understand the concept of like society's scandal, but there is also a general kind of like life preservation situation here. Like, mugging, is that never thought of by anyone? Do they not think that that could be a possibility? Assault, is that not considered a possibility? Just waltzing around the streets of Chicago. There were just moments when I couldn't quite suspend my disbelief. So I am going to keep reading to find out how I feel about the romances and if they do work. I'm going to take some convincing. I want to be convinced. I'm aware this isn't for me in terms of style, in terms of pacing. I do appreciate Crystal Marcus's messages that she's trying to put across in here that's explored. For me to love it as a historical romance, I needed more. I don't feel that more than this is going to give me more, but I do feel it is going to tie up those love stories so I can say, yes, I did see this romance. I cannot judge the romance properly with it when it's not finished.
A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. I'm enjoying this book so much. So I've read quite a bit more since I last spoke to you. So it's looking like that. I think I'm 100. So yeah, I'm 150 pages in. So we have now met Evermere, which is the other sort of point of view we get, which makes me think he will be the love interest. So Evermere is assigned to be Cadu's bodyguard. More than a bodyguard though. So one of the things I'm really loving about this is I'm really loving the world building and kind of like how this society is built up and their customs and the way they do things in here. So they have these, so I was saying like it was kind of like soldiers of like different levels. It's more than that. They're highly skilled people and they're called like Kalayas or something like that. And they go through various different tests and they know how to do everything, and they're kind of responsible for different areas of government and for being very close to the royal family. There's like ranks you rise through depending on like how many exams you've done and kind of how skilled you are. So there is certainly like skills within military, within diplomacy. So I didn't quite know further than that, but it was really interesting like listening to that, and it was very clear that these are not just guards, they're so much more than that. So Evermere is like top of his class, like he's just gone through another exam, he's very highly thought of, and he's very studious and very like obedient and does the right thing. He has a really strong relationship with his mum, that she's a big supporter of his, that he has he always writes to her, he goes home to her before he has his big exam rather than with like his contemporaries. Beyond that, we don't get a huge amount about Evermere. That would be my one criticism, like apart from him doing his job and his opinions about Cadu and the different people within sort of the hierarchy, we don't have a lot about what drives Evermere. I'm hoping we're going to get that a bit more, because at the moment I'm fascinated by his opinions of Cadu and seeing him be like a foil to some of the other characters in here. Like he is our way into understanding like how high stickler he is for the proper way of doing things, like their traditions and their like the proprieties and the different levels of respect. So it's really fascinating to kind of like as a reader to get that through him. But in terms of me having a connection to him, I haven't quite got there.
Habs so adopted Kadu. He must be protected. He's a sweetheart. It is very clear that Kadu is suffering from a great amount of anxiety, as he's really struggling with his mental health. He refers to it as cowardice, which is so upsetting and soul destroying, and it's so stifling about all the ways he's got to hold it together, the way he's got to appear, and my heart absolutely goes out to him. And I just find it fascinating to watch Kadu and to watch Evermere and kind of their interactions, and Evermere kind of puzzling over the way Kadu does things. Kadu sort of like being in this spiral, and you get a certain amount that, yes, things aren't looking good for him at the moment, and we understand how he's feeling responsible, but a lot of this stuff, it's very clear, like, that is Kadu's perspective. Not everyone hates him and is disappointed at him and refuses to look at him, and a lot of it is from his perspective and how he is feeling and how he is perceiving events. But within that, there is a lot that he thought maybe he wasn't perceiving it correctly, whereas he is. Like, he's over trying with everything, and I just want to wrap him up and give him a big hug and just tell everyone to go away. I want to take him on holiday. I think he needs a holiday. He just needs to kind of get out for a bit. I really love the commander. She's like a mother figure mentor to Kadu as well, which I really appreciate. You really kind of get all of the political happenings within here, like the different power balances, the ways that things need to be done, and it's so fascinating, and it very much feels like a lot of things are on a knife edge because of certain things that are happening. So there's been a break-in. This society is built on trade and the worth of their gold, that it is like always smelted correctly with a very high percentage of gold, and that is why people will always trust their trade. Like, they know the worth of their money and system. And something has happened where certain of their like shipbuilding and ship things that they have to be able to do certain trade routes at certain times have been stolen, which means other people could be open to their secrets. So they're trying to sort of like find out who's stolen it and where it's gone. So Kadu's part of that investigation, but also he's struggling with how involved he's allowed to be, or if he's ruining it, or if it's making it worse, if he believes in what's been discovered, or if he doesn't trust it. So there's a lot of anxiety around all of this. So there's that aspect. There's also an aspect of some counterfeit coins, I think, that are happening and putting things in danger. So they're exploring that. There is sort of diplomatic relations with the Oisos, is one of the different countries, and there was a diplomat from Oisos here. There is some, I can't remember exactly what it is, but there is something to do with the way certain things are being handled that they're trying to tread carefully with. But also the body father of the heir is Osios, and he does not have that same culture. It is much more like our culture, that a child belongs to both the mother and father if they are on the birth certificate, or the two parents who are on the birth certificate is who the child belongs to. Whereas here it's all from the mother has the right. So the person that bought the child has the right of the child, unless they give the partner the rights as well. So he is kind of struggling against what it means to be a body father, like, because it's not his culture. So he's quite prickly, and it's very fascinating, this kind of political system, and just seeing how Kadu is hurt, and I just feel for him. And there's just some very kind of bad self-medication, I think is what we'll call it, that Kadu is indulging in. But it's very fascinating to see that relationship between him kind of going off the rails and just seeing how much that is going to upset his very fastidious rule-following primary Kayla. That is the correct terminology, I think. But essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's like a bodyguard, but one of higher status. So he is charged with making sure Kadu is safe. And it's a role, and it's a role of honour, but at the moment he kind of sees it more as, I am serving the Sultan and I am serving my commander, and they have commanded me to look after the prince, and that's why I'm doing it, rather than taking orders from Kadu himself. But they are starting to see another side to each other and respect each other, But like I said, I don't know what drives Evermere at the moment. I only know what drives Kadu. But I warm to Evermere the more I see him change his opinion on Kadu. So I'm enjoying this real slow burn. I'm really hoping to get more about Evermere so that I can then root for them as a couple. But at the moment, I am just having the best time with this. Like, I love a slow burn. I love world building. I love exploring different cultures. I love kind of political knife edges. It's just so delicious to me. In terms of romance, like, I feel that will heat up. I feel that I will be invested in it. So we're not seeing a lot of romance at the moment, but there is potential. And I think once I can like find out a little bit more about Evermere, I feel it's going to be like quite electric. So I'm very, very excited. There have been some moments they've both been a little bit protective of each other. Just kind of like, you're allowed to like say that your brother or your family is annoying. But if someone else does it, then you immediately kind of like want to jump down their throat and in defense sometimes. They're not the best of friends. They haven't got an affection or a fondness for each other, but there is still kind of that joining together when someone else kind of comes into the mix. So that's been fun. So yeah, definitely going to keep reading, and I will obviously be checking in. But at the moment, I wasn't expecting to be in love with it. I thought it would be fun, but I wasn't expecting to be in love with it. And at the moment, I am in love with this book. It's just amazing.
Hi, filming from outside because I'm about to go and get on a bus to get some stuff done today, and I really want to read some more of A Taste of Golden Iron. As you can see, I'm over halfway now, and the book I'm just consuming it. I just can't stop reading it. So I thought I'd just quickly check in so I can carry on reading because I don't want to stop. In terms of the romance plot side of things, it wasn't until we were over like a third of the way through, sort of like the 250 page mark. So up until that point, we just had these characters sort of getting to know each other, not trusting each other, feeling annoyed by the other person or intimidated by the other person. And now, once we hit that 250 page mark, they've started to know a bit more about each other and things are simmering. So it's starting to get slightly involved. But you've got all these different political things. We've got the idea of sort of stations of power, and all of that is coming into play, and something dramatic has just sort of happened. So I'm quite keen to get back into that, and I will give you more thoughts later, and we'll see how far I get by the end of the day.
So I am back from doing all my errands and have some lunch, sit down and read before going to do the school run. And I didn't really manage to tell you much during my last update because I was in a park in a public place. But I wanted to speak to you before I read some more. But what I kind of wanted to say that I realised I haven't said yet was, I already love Kadu, so yay. Evemere, I was enjoying like him finding more out about Kadu. But I've now started to get to know Evemere a little bit more. I think it would have been nice to have had like some more Evemere before he got called into kind of like the prince's the being a prince's bodyguard, for want of a better word. It would have been nice to have like seen him like among his contemporaries, so we kind of get more of his character a little bit, like see him with him and his mum, so we know where he's coming from. We're kind of finding out more about him as we go. So maybe it's kind of like Kadu finds out more about him, we find out more about him. Maybe that's the kind of situation. But anyway, I'm starting to kind of see his sort of drives and needs a little bit more. And I'm really enjoying his sort of softening towards Kadu and like them as a pair together, like how they kind of communicate what they need and what they want. It seems like a one-way relationship. Kadu is the prince and gets served and taken care of, but there's such an interesting amount of balance and the purpose and the society and what it's all kind of doing. He's very clear that he also needs to know what Evemere's needs are and make sure those are met, so that he's making sure that he's also properly looked after. It's obviously not completely balanced because you can't when you've got one person higher than the other in status, in rank, in all of that. But generally, like there is more communication going on between them for like this relationship they have, like a working relationship, possibly going into a friendship to work. but you have also got this simmering tension as well going on. And what I've really been enjoying is that you very much are, they kind of like connect more, they kind of start to respect each other and appreciate each other's kind of intelligence and character. And then you start getting the appreciation of their physical attractiveness and kind of the closeness to them, the sort of wanting to touch each other kind of situation. So you've had this understanding of their character and things, and then you move on to that. Whereas often when you're reading sort of romance, you do get more of you look at the physical side first of all. So I'm really enjoying that we've kind of got that as like second, once they know each other, once they know each other a little bit more. And there's so many kind of things underlying here. You've got other characters that are putting two together a little bit more. And also there's this kind of concept that it's not, because they're not the same status, because they're not on a level, it wouldn't work because of how the city works, kind of like how their culture works. So it's really fascinating, but ultimately I just adore Kadu, and I'm really starting to get fond of Yvma as well. Mainly because of how he is. I think as he softens to Kadu, I'm softening towards Yvma. Not that I disliked him to begin with, but his character was basically like, you know, Mr. Stonewall. So we're now starting, which sounds a lot cooler than it is, Mr. Blank-faced Wall. But now I'm starting to see a little bit more of his character, especially once we happen to come across his mother now, and we're starting to see interactions with her. All the characters have been kind of put into, the key players have been put into more of a confined situation. So there's a lot kind of stuff happening that way. So absolutely enjoying it. And I'm going to stop talking now because I want to go back to reading. I've just looked at the time and I have to go, and I didn't even manage to go and finish making my lunch. I've just had snacks, but I'm so close. Look, I've only got a little bit left. Well, I suppose as far as the book is, it's not that much. It's only a bit left. And I just want to stay and read it, but I can't. But it's so good. Honestly, I cannot believe how much I'm loving this book, but I am loving it so much. And I did finish it. So that is now all of the books finished. So look out for my second video, which will be coming soon, where I will give you all of my thoughts on all three of these books. And I will talk you through my little romance chart thing to give you the lowdown on which ones worked for me and which ones didn't and why. So I will see you in the next video. Happy reading, everyone.